Hello, welcome to Flick This Movie. I am Rene Garcia.
And I'm Brian Glass.
And today we will be reviewing Spider-Man Far From Home.
Mm-hmm.
Let's roll the trailer. Let's roll part of the trailer to avoid copyright strikes from Sony.
Everywhere I go, I see his face. I just really miss him.
Yeah, I miss him too. I don't think Tony would have done what he did if he didn't know that you were going to be here after he was gone.
You gonna be the next Iron Man now?
Well, no, I don't have time. I'm too busy doing your jobs.
Oh.
I'm kidding. Look, keep
Okay.
up the good work.
All right, enough of that.
Enough of that.
Enough of that. And the silly faces.
I
Okay,
had
Brian.
no silly faces.
What?
I had no silly faces.
Oh. Well, I couldn't see what you were doing. I was just doing my own thing, so
I watch
I'm
you
just
the
going to
whole
look
time.
like the moron then.
No. Well, Renee, why don't you kick us off, man? Give us your quick review of this.
I was hoping you would go first, Brian.
Oh, okay. I can try. So let me start by kind of setting the stage. I'm a big fan of the MCU. And it's kind of difficult for me to view any of the movies anymore as standalone movies. They all like kind of exist within the entirety of the MCU. So that being said, I'm not going to say I'm an apologist, but I probably give a little bit more slack to these movies than is due. So with all that being said, I think that there is a good amount of goodwill, let's say, that was produced by Endgame, because I think I found Endgame really, really satisfying on so many levels.
Mm-hmm.
And I had kind of like positive emotional baggage going into this movie. I felt like really good about the MCU. And that kind of dissipated fairly quickly, unfortunately, because this movie really did not hold up very well for me. Even with all that, foundation being set by the other movie. So ultimately, it kind of left me wanting more, better plot, better characterization, total changes in the focus. I think would have been really helpful. There's a lot of issues that I had with the movie, and I won't go into any of those into any of the spoilers until a little bit later, but I will kind of talk about some of the larger concepts of the movies. I really like when a movie has consequences within the universe that it creates. And I think that Endgame set those consequences. Well, really, Infinity War set the consequences in motion with the snap, which is renamed here for some reason I can't really fathom. But anyway, the snap, I think, had really interesting consequences. And what happens in Endgame has consequences here as well. And I love that. I love that now we have to live in a world that is a little bit different. A little different than what we would normally expect, and there are going to be plot devices and situations that arise as a result of that. I think that's really cool. I'm trying to start with something positive about this movie because I have a lot of negative things to say, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that being said, like this is a movie after I watched it, I didn't really like it, and then the more I thought about it, the worse it kind of got. So
Okay.
On a real high level, the plot is not really ever truly established in this movie. We think it is because there are a lot of things that are thrown at us, as in, this makes sense and you should understand this and you're following along and there's a continuity, but there's really not a true plot to this movie. There is a kind of like a shadow, I would say, of a plot. Like they had some ideas somewhere that either within the Marvel machine were watered down to such an extent that they kind of got lost in the midst of everything else, or maybe they just missed it altogether. I'm not sure, but I got to give them I have to think that they had the intention of getting a better plot across. It just really wasn't here. And again, we'll get into that a little bit more, but
Yeah.
once it's kind of revealed, it's really not clear because applying the slightest bit of rational thought and it just falls apart completely. So I can't get too much into it because it all really rests on something that happens partway through the movie, that is kind of a catalyst for what the real movie's about. But I will say, it didn't work for me. It felt like, again, just watered down and, not very powerful. I think we have a holdover problem from a previous movie, which is Black Panther. And I call it the tech problem, where basically at this point in these movies, anything you could think of can be done.
Yeah.
You want to have a helmet that appears instantaneously? Sure,
Right.
fine. We've got nano whatever
Right.
technology,
Yeah.
nanotech.
Right. Yeah.
We can do anything. And to me, the more you can do, the less interesting it becomes. For me, interest lies in what's impossible and how these people can strive and get it, basically beat that impossible measure that's thrown at them, not what is possible. I mean, that's cool, for a while, but it really kind of feels lazy to me. So I think this is a trend that's populating the movies in MCU that kind of bothers me. I really would hope that, it goes away, but I don't think it's going to in any time because of kind of where this movie goes and where it ends. And,
Yeah.
it doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies. So that is not something I really liked. The pacing of the movie and the tone of the movie overall felt rushed and immature to me.
Okay.
Like one of the very first scenes is, and this I don't think is giving anything away, is with Aunt May and Peter, or Spider-Man, I should say, in some sort of convention. And it just sent a really awkward tone to the whole movie, where a lot of the characters really slipped into caricature. And I felt like that was a problem that permeated the movie. Like, I didn't really see a lot of the things that they do as ever truly happening.
Right.
Some things may happen, but the number of things that are just thrown at you constantly was really distracting for me. It really took me out of the movie, and I'm trying to put myself into the movie and just relax and let it wash over me.
Yeah.
And over and over, these absurdities kept coming out. These absurd quote unquote characters that had zero development kept coming at me. So I think they kind of felt like, why should we have one or two fun characters when we can have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 zany
Make them all
characters?
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned at one point, like, the original Avengers, maybe even Ultron, sharing kind of the Joss Whedon type effect where everyone's kind of a smartass.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the same thing happened here to even a worse degree. Like, I felt like all these characters were just manifestations of one-liners over and over.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of swings that were taken, and I think most of them were missed. Okay, so I guess moving on to maybe themes for a second. Another real issue I had was that one of the main themes of Homecoming was really about Peter Parker and is he ready to become a superhero yet? I mean, he's obviously battling adolescence. And, is he ready for that mantle? Is he ready for the responsibility? And I felt like at least 2 times during this movie, we had the same questioning coming up. And for me, again, within the entirety of the MCU, I like to look back and say, okay, Spider-Man Homecoming does not exist on its own. We've got a couple Avengers movies in there. We've got Civil War in there where Spider-Man was there, and we've kind of seen him progress a little bit. And that progress it's kind of like forgotten here, because we're just gonna erase some of the things that happened, and we're going to readdress the same themes that were in Homecoming. And to me, it's like, I want to see something new. I want to see this. I want to see character growth within these movies.
Yeah.
And it's not happening. So that was another problem. And I'm sorry that I'm just kind of like knocking. But again, this is a movie that really bothered me, probably because of something I'll talk about after spoilers, which is really potential versus what they actually did. So
very quickly, just to kind of expand on what you just said about revisiting themes. So did you feel that there was a certain disjointedness between the movies? Meaning you had Homecoming, then you had Infinity War and Endgame, and then we come back to with Far From Home, and maybe the writers, they forgot that certain things were established.
That they forgot that he's a big time superhero who did quite a bit to help save life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was forgotten. I think there was definitely miscommunication there between the different writers.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, that's totally fine. Anyhow, and then another theme in this movie is brought up a few times, which is kind of the smartest person in the room deserves to be heard. And it's brought up as an idea. And again, it's kind of just like dropped because it really, again, doesn't make any sense. So I felt like they're trying to push these ideas, but they were maybe lost due to, hey, we need more quips. We need more action scenes. We need more awkward situations, so we're going to lose the real characterization, which is unfortunate for me because the basis of any movie that's successful has to do with the relationships, the characters and whatnot. So
yeah,
that was unfortunate. Bright spots on this. There is a part towards the middle where there's an illusion that takes place. And Spider-Man is obviously involved in that. Yeah. And I just thought that was such a cool piece. Like that was my favorite set piece of this. Battles are battles, but that was just like so interesting to watch that I could only imagine that, 10 years ago as being something that could be achieved animated and look cool. Right. And I thought this was like, regardless if it could be done, I thought that the way that the artist did this was just so cool.
The execution was awesome. Yeah.
It really was.
I agree.
Yeah. And I really like Tom Holland as an actor. I think he just does a really great job as Spider-Man, and he's kind of got that, that youthful outlook and appearance. He's kind of in that perfect position for Spider-Man for me, versus maybe some of the ones who were Spider-Man before. So I really like what he brought to the characterization. But again, on the flip side, the characters that were developed for this particular movie, MJ, I'll get into a little bit later. His best friend, was it Ned? Yeah. Some of the other characters that were in this, again, there's really no growth there. There's nothing there that's interesting. There's nothing there that I feel like if they made another Avengers movie and you missed this one, like that was the next one, you wouldn't miss a thing. Yeah. Nothing at all. There was really no consequence to this movie. Right. So, except for, the only consequence comes way late in the movie, which we can't talk about. Right. Right. Yeah. So, in the end, I guess ultimately, like I said, I think this is a victim of the Marvel machine. Maybe there are just too many people, too many voices. I'd be astonished if this movie does well in the box office past the first couple weeks. Past the time when people see it, and I don't think it's going to have any legs at all. Yeah. I think it'll start great, and I think it already has actually done really well. But that's not going to hold up, in my opinion. All right. So how about you, man? What did you think of?
Well, first of all, let me just add to what you just said about box office predictions here. I felt the same way about Black Panther. I thought that was aggressively mediocre, and I was just waiting. It's like, oh, it's going to fall off the cliff now. Yeah. Nope. $1 billion. Okay. I guess it doesn't matter anymore, right? Like Marvel and Disney have made this perpetual money-making machine, essentially. Yeah. So there you go.
But if they make lazy movies, I think that's going to have that's going to bite them eventually. And I think that there are other elements that factored into Black Panther's success that aren't here.
I guess I don't know. I don't know what that would look like. To be honest,
unless Filipino nation comes together and says we're gonna take this thing and make it this is part of our culture now, right?
Filipino nation.
Yeah, Ned's Filipino.
I understand that, but what does that have to do with anything?
Black Panther, I think, had some of its success owed to where it lives, within the racial world that we live in right now.
Okay.
As being like something that people can rally around. I don't
get
think you're going
that.
to get that same thing from Filipino Nation is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
there's not enough grievance from Filipinos for people to become allies and pour their money into the theater and say, I support my little brown brothers and sisters. So there you go. Until the Filipinos, of which I am one,
What?
make more noise about their lot in life, I just don't think we're going to get that kind of showing.
That's my point. That's why I don't think it's going to have Black Panther legs.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. No, I think it's going to have legs regardless. I think people, they don't want to, like, they know the Marvel Cinematic Universe is just going to keep going, and they don't want to miss an episode, if you will.
Yeah.
Right? People are going to talk about it, and they're going to be memes, and it's going to seep into our culture in all these different ways, and people want to be in the know, right?
Yeah. The test of a good movie for me is when I leave a movie and I'm like, I can't wait to see that again.
Okay.
And I felt like that after Endgame. I was like, I can't wait to see this again. That was such a cool experience. Mm-hmm. And this one, I'm like, oh God, I don't think I ever want to see this again.
All right. Fair enough. So there you go. I guess that answers my next question. So your recommendation is skip this movie. Don't see it.
Yeah. Flick this movie.
Flick this movie. We're establishing our brand as we go along here, folks. All right. You said a lot of things that just sparked some thoughts in my mind as you were speaking about, are these films consequential to the broader universe? And, you're right. I don't think they really are. I mean, the fact that I didn't even watch Homecoming before Endgame, right? Like, I didn't make the time. I wasn't invited by Sony. I fell off their list a long time ago, right? So, and even though it, was available on the, for streaming, for rental or whatever, I didn't go out of my way to watch it. And I was able to enjoy Endgame and the rest of the Disney MCU just fine, not a problem. So I think there are a couple of reasons for that, and I think this ties into what you said. The fact that we didn't get an origin story for Spider-Man, much in the same way we didn't get a true origin story for Black Panther either. Spider-Man just shows up in Civil War, right? We don't get the whole biting, of the spider biting him, giving him the superpower, discovering that he has powers. How does that affect his life? We don't get the same experience we had with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies.
Sure.
You have a guy, and this is a classic, superhero origin, right? You have a person who is good of heart, good moral character, who is brave, but just doesn't have the physical attributes to match that courage. Suddenly they are imbued with this power, right? And one of the things that I think we all enjoy about the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man is, once he's able to like swing around and doing all this stuff, like you see him really enjoying it, right? And he's like really adroit, and it's like discovering you can fly, right? Like who wouldn't enjoy that? Who wouldn't want to always be that character, that person? And, maybe the Tom Holland Spider-Man had that experience too, but we didn't get to experience it with him. And it's strange that throughout, at least through these two films, it seems like he is almost annoyed at being Spider-Man, right? Like he wants to be a teenager more than being Spider-Man. It's like, that's kind of weird. That doesn't even make sense to me. And not that that is a persistent thought I had, but I think it was something that was gnawing in the back of my mind just a little bit. Like it just seemed strange. Like, why wouldn't you want, like, in Homecoming, all he wanted to do was be this Avenger, right? And then suddenly he's like, no, forget all of that. I want to, chase after this girl in my life, which we'll get to later on.
But you're right. That is a prevalent thing in this film, that he doesn't want to do it. And prevalent. I mean, it's a huge part of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I think another thing for me that makes my experience with Far From Home a little more unique is that, I watched Homecoming essentially right before watching Far From Home. So on one hand, I thought, hey, this is cool. Like they were able to keep this continuity between certain characters. Like certain characters from high school came back, and I was like, I remember them, and they kept them, and it's just like a great continuation.
Right.
But I think it also, I don't know where I was going with this. I think that's all I wanted to say is that I like the continuation. But it also felt like, oh, there was something else here. There was a bigger point I wanted to make. Oh, well. Well, yeah, maybe I'll revisit that. So, like you, well, maybe, I don't know if you mentioned this, but I felt like it was trying to tell too much story in too little time. And, I think there are ways to tell a lot of plots in one movie and have it be satisfying, provided you know where to focus the majority of screen time. And here I felt like, I don't think that's spoiling anything to talk about this Mysterio character. There's a Mysterio character. But it's almost like they conclude it and then take it into another direction, like 2/3 through the movie. And it's like, I don't know that I'm ready for that,
Yeah.
And, there are just these other things with Spider-Man chasing after this girl. There's, some little side romance comedy with some other characters. Then you have the SHIELD agency. They're involved. It's just like there's a lot of things happening here that don't get the screen time, or at least the amount of screen time that I think they all needed to be satisfying.
Man, do I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because, really, there's a lot going on. And at the end of the day, what did you care about? What did you take away?
Right.
Rather than focusing on 2 or 3 of them, which is fine for a feature-length movie.
Yeah.
And I'll care about all of them if it's done right.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Now, you said a lot of things that I don't want to reiterate, but just, to kind of touch on them. I did feel like, they were trying to make everybody funny when that wasn't necessary. You started having these high school kids just speaking strangely. I didn't understand why certain characters had to suddenly, be together and then, be apart, and having like these weird, like, Confucius says moments or whatever. I'm like, where is this coming from? Who thought this was funny? It's just like, oh, it's so random. It's funny.
I think that Tom Holland said he went, in preparation for Homecoming, he went into a high school and enrolled in America, and he just kind of attended for a little while.
Oh.
And I think that's cool. And I feel like
that's cool.
And I feel like this is written by 40-year-olds who are 25 years removed from what they're writing.
Right.
Thinking, yeah, this is how high school was. This is how high school is.
Hey now. Yeah. But I will say, just to throw out some compliments here, I really did like Tom Holland. The performance he gave as the Spider-Man that this movie decided to present. I don't know if it's because of my influence from, just some random comics I read as a child, or maybe, like, once again, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. I always felt that they were a little more mature for some reason. Like, they looked more like grown men. And I know that's, that's probably just par for the course for, when you're drawing a comic book. It's a power fantasy, right? So you want to make these characters be, even though they're in high school, there's this really buff dude who's like 6'5" or whatever, right?
Right.
But it did, I don't know, it was a mismatch in my mind watching Tom Holland as Spider-Man and behaving the way he did. I felt like I was watching like Spider-Boy, if you will. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily bad. It's just a different approach to it. That's all. But I do like his performance as like this awkward, teen guy who, is chasing after a girl. It's like, oh, hey, he's doing that part of the role really well. In fact, I wrote a review after I saw the movie, and I said something to the effect that, he's got that awkward teenager persona down pat. And if they ever remake the Back to the Future series, like I think he'd be a great Marty McFly, right?
Totally, yeah.
And just the way he whatever, just that awkwardness, and he doesn't know what to say sometimes, and he gives like these, dumbfounded looks, right? It's just thought this is great. So
Yeah. Where can people find that review?
On my other site, workingauthor.com. Thank you for letting me plug that, Brian.
It's my joy to pimp you.
All right, so here's what I would say. I don't know that it's necessary to watch this movie. And well, actually, let me back up before I get into my like mid podcast summary here. I too did like the special effects sequences. The one that happens like we'll say at the beginning of the third act, and then the one that happens obviously in the climax, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's not the third, maybe the end of the second act. Anyway, I thought, wow, this is like a totally different movie all of a sudden. It's suddenly awesome, right? And so it kind of like threw me for a loop, because I was like, okay, I just had this feeling up until then, like, I just don't like this movie. Yeah. And then it became a good movie. Right. And so I'm like, how do I feel about this? I'm not sure. And so I had these mixed feelings walking out of the theater. Here's the thing. I know that once people start clipping out those action sequences and putting it on YouTube, those are sequences I know I'm going to watch over and over again.
Right.
Like I want to relive watching that. Yeah. Because they were so cool. The rest of the movie I can throw away. So I don't know what that says, where I come down on this movie. Depending on the rest of the MCU and how much this develops and how pivotal the Spider-Man is, it may be necessary viewing. I think on their own, they are disposable entertainment.
I think that could be said for a lot of the other movies as well that are standalone. Okay. Kind of intermixed between the Avengers movies, with the exception of maybe Captain America, simply because there's like Civil War, which is like Avengers 2.5. But a lot of the other ones don't live there, but I want to see them. I've enjoyed the Thor movies. I've enjoyed, not the Thor movies, I shouldn't say that. I've enjoyed the last Thor movie.
There you go.
But the first two, like my son, I'm showing everything to my son, and I want him to see them all. But right now we're watching them out of order because he missed a few. So he still has Captain America, the first Avenger, and the first two Thor movies to watch. Because I'm like, yeah, you probably should see them. Just there are a couple of good parts. He just watched Winter Soldier, which I guess has a little bit more prominence within the MCU. So, to varying degrees, I think you're right that this one definitely. I'm guessing this one will have no consequence except for what happens very late.
Yeah.
To the greater MCU. So it's more of a, if you want to see it, if not, probably better off. Unless you want to see those cool scenes.
Right. Rousing endorsement, I guess. There,
exactly. Right? So what would your final response be? Your final review? Would you flick this movie?
Yeah. Flick this movie. Flick it hard.
Flick it, man. Just keep flicking it.
All right, so let's get into the nitty gritty and maybe
change the name of this because this won't make any sense.
All right, exactly.
Get us stuck with it.
So maybe our opinions will change once we get into kind of the more the details, the spoiler-filled details of the movie.
Do we have a spoiler alert screen?
No, this is us. This is it. This is my face.
Spoiler. There.
Just get like spoiled milk, start drinking it. Ah. Okay.
Take us there, man.
Well, let me just start with the one thing that I immediately had questions. Like I didn't understand why it was happening, and it's like the very beginning. Peter Parker has this plan to his classmates or his class is going on a European vacation. And he has this plan to woo MJ.
Right.
And I was like, I don't remember him liking her. And keep in mind, I just come from Homecoming, where he was in love with this girl named Liz, and she's gone now, and she's gone for good, I guess, right? And now he wants to express his feelings to MJ, like confess his love for her or whatever. And I was like, when did that happen? You know what I mean? Like, he had been gone in the blip, as they call it now, instead of the snap. He had been gone for 5 years. Was he like conscious in the blip?
Wouldn't that have been nice to know?
Well, and here's the thing. I assumed that when you were part of the snap, when you were snapped away, you just ceased to exist. You weren't like in another plane or whatever. You didn't have time to grow a beard, as a different character says he did.
Oh, we're in spoiler land. You can use names now.
Okay, well, Happy has a beard. Happy Hogan has a beard in this, like some facial hair, much like Brian here. And he says he has this line, "I grew it in the blip." And I'm like, what? How did you grow it in the blip? You were a pile of ash. You were gone. Anyway, so I don't know. So I surmised in my review, was like, well, maybe Peter developed feelings in the blip over 5 years. That could be the only reason. So there's that. Secondly...
Well, let me respond to that for a second. Just because I think that she was showing him a mild amount of interest, or at least intriguing him at the end of Homecoming. Homecoming.
Really?
Yeah, the only reason I can say that, and the way I came to terms with that, and his plan was that it sounds really juvenile. It sounds like something someone in high school might come up with. Like, so she looked at me. I'm gonna buy her a necklace. You know what I mean? That's like, these things actually did happen back in high school. Like, people get those feelings very quickly and make these plans that are overly elaborate. I remember these things very well.
That's fine. I agree that feelings can develop quickly.
Renee, do you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I just want to make sure that you hear me.
I hear you. I'm stopping myself from saying it, Brian.
I love it.
Anyway.
Please, continue.
It's just that, and once again, maybe this is because I just seen Homecoming, right? And he just had this very traumatic experience with this girl named Liz, right?
Right.
I mean, maybe it wasn't with her specifically, but it's all tied to her. Like he had to fight her father, he had to save him, all of that. And to just, immediately move over to, I like this other girl, it just felt a little weird to me. Okay, so with that said, the other problem I have is, well, before I get to the problem, let me just say it's very convenient that all of the people that were blipped were his friends, and that they're all the same age still. Because there's this convention in the movie that, hey, the people who weren't blipped, they aged like normal people. The people in the blip did not age a day, which doesn't that is contradictory to Happy growing the beard, but whatever.
But wouldn't it have been great if they had at least one of them that did grow up?
Okay, yeah.
Maybe Ned, whatever, someone. That'd been so cool.
I think it would have been a nice little thing. I don't know. It could have been a nice little moment where, like a friend of his is like an older dude now. He's like in college.
Like a friend could become a mentor or something. They've been there for 5 years. A lot more wisdom. Anyway.
Right. Yeah. So that was very convenient.
Yeah.
Are we to assume that the teachers who chaperoned them on the European trip, they're not 5 years older either? Like they were blipped away as well?
Does it matter?
I guess it doesn't. Anyway, okay, so the bigger problem I have is MJ struck me as this kind of like weird, off-putting girl in the first movie. And in this movie, she's only a little bit better, but I think, it feels forced. It feels like they needed a romance for Peter Parker, and she was there. So, okay, she's starting to soften up, I guess. But in my mind, there was nothing about her that would be attractive to Peter. And just attractive to people in general. She's very, I don't know if militant is necessarily the word, but she, kind of activist-y. Like always looking for a way to be offended by something you do, right? And it's like, how can you be attracted to that? You're always going to be, you know, walking on eggshells. And furthermore, I didn't see her showing any attraction towards him.
Yeah.
Until the script required it, really. So, any thoughts there, Brian?
Yeah, her character really confused me throughout.
Yeah.
Because who I saw in the beginning, you know, where she was kind of alluding that she was interested in him, I was okay with that. But I felt like the character at the end, by the end, she was like a different character altogether. You know, when she's going through, when they're on the bridge, or they're, you know, going through their swinging exercise, you know,
Right.
I'm like, well, where was this person? She shows joy.
Exactly.
And it's like, I didn't see the transition, you know, from angry to joy.
Right.
And it just felt like, again, this is one of the issues I had that I was mentioning before. She's one of the prime candidates of that. There's no character growth here. There's no development here at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just whatever Peter needed in that case, she was going to get, she was going to give. And, you know, honestly, like, you know, when they're facing death in that one scene behind that door and the drone is cutting through and all them are being idiotic and giving their one-liners. This is supposed to be the, you know, one of the moments of truth for them, right? They're coming to, they're meeting their maker. So she confesses that her big thing is that she's obsessed with always telling the truth, despite the consequences, despite the circumstances.
Right.
Yet as her defining character trait or her defining conversation with Peter, she lied to him. She's not interested.
Yeah.
She was interested in Spider-Man. I'm like, well,
Good point.
either she's lying there, she's wrong, she has no idea what her truth is, or they need the character to lie now because that's going to be a little more dramatic, you know. And I don't like that. I like a character to be true.
Yeah.
So this is one of those character developments I had a lot of problem with. It wasn't really Zendaya'S performance. I thought she was fine given what she was given. I don't know what else she could have done,
Right.
but I don't know, man. I had a real problem with her.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, speaking of that scene where the robots are trying to get through the door, I don't know if you remember the first Transformers.
Yeah, I do.
All right, John Voight and some, I don't know what their characters are, but like some no-name actors. I don't know if they've done anything else, but you know, you know. Anyway, they're like younger actors, and like John Voight's got a shotgun and he's fending off like Transformers or robots trying to get in or whatever, right? So you have all these like multiple plot lines, and they keep cutting back to John Voight in this enclosed room trying to fend off robots with these other people. It felt like that. And that moment made me like, it made this comparison. I started building this comparison in my mind, you know, with Transformers and Spider-Man, at least this Spider-Man movie. And that wasn't a good comparison. Like, I just felt like we're forced to watch these various plots happening at the same time. I don't know what, to create a sense of suspense that there are these, or that the danger is so widespread. I don't know. I felt like it was just give these characters something to do.
Man, I gotta tell you, I think you're spot on with the Transformers comparison, especially like the second one on, when it got even more. What's the word I'm looking for? It's just like they couldn't concentrate. I felt like the film had ADD. Yeah, manic.
Yeah,
it felt like that was happening here at the outset for the entire movie. Like they just couldn't concentrate on what they wanted to do, so they did everything, and they did it all poorly. Not all of it, but they did a lot of it poorly.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great comparison.
Yeah, you know, it got to the point where I didn't care. Like, you know, you had who was in that little safe room? You know, you had Happy, you had Zendaya, you had MJ.
Yep.
You had Ned
and his girlfriend.
And was Flash in there too?
Flash is in there too.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't care about Flash. You know, it's like, you know, I don't even care about Ned's girlfriend.
No.
And I only barely care about Ned. And, you know, I cared about him more in the first movie.
Totally.
Because, you know, it was becoming, they were starting to fill their kind of like archetypal roles. And they had this meta moment in Homecoming where he's like, I'll be your man in the chair, right? And I'm like, that's cute. I like that. And then he becomes the man in the chair at the end, you know? And then here it's just like, I'm just a dude. I'm just a dude here to provide, you know, comedic relief.
Right. You know, and it's funny you say that because I was thinking about MJ in the same way. Like she is kind of that militant person, but I would rather they take that element of her, that strong element of her,
Yeah.
and make it part of the script. Let's make her useful within this universe.
Yeah.
So fine, Ned's got his place. What's her place? Or
Right.
maybe she's the brains behind some of the stuff that's going on. Maybe she's the one who figures out that Mysterio is actually who he is, instead of Peter figuring everything out, and she's just there going, yeah, oh yeah, or whatever. You know what I mean? She's just reacting.
Sure.
It's almost like they didn't trust that we can give that, you know, give a little bit of meat on the bone over to the female character as well.
Yeah.
And you're right. I love what they did in Homecoming with Ned and his growth. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And it's like when you see something, you think, man, I'd like to be Peter Parker. That'd be cool. But if not, a Ned character's pretty cool too. I wouldn't mind being the guy in the chair.
Right.
That's a cool character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely agree with you on that.
Okay. So those are my initial thoughts. I don't want to monopolize the conversation here, Brian. So did you want to interject something like?
You know, I want to talk about the overall focus, if I could, for a second. This is something I couldn't really talk about in the beginning. Going back to the trailer, I felt like I got a little bit of flick bait on the trailer.
Branding.
Did you feel like you just got a little bit of branding in this show? So one of the things is when I watch trailers for a movie I want to see, a lot of times I'll watch the first trailer and then I'll skip the other ones because they give away scenes that to me are just detracting from the overall experience of the movie now.
Right.
You've got me already. I don't want to see anymore. So I only watched the first trailer for this movie, and I found it kind of compelling.
Of course,
this is really cool. This is going to be great because this is going to be a movie that is dealing with the fallout, not only from the snap, but the fallout of losing a father figure. And I felt like instead it was a comedy about the blip and losing an Avenger.
Okay.
And those are two distinct differences for me. Whereas I think that they spend a lot of time focusing on who's going to be the next Iron Man.
Yeah.
I think that the better movie would have been, hey, I've lost Uncle Ben, my father figure, which we never got into in Homecoming, which is fine. That's fine. I understand that they want to skip and kind of go right into it. I'm okay with that, but there's still an emotional impact to it. But they spent a lot of time over the last few movies outside of just Spider-Man building the relationship between Tony and Peter.
Yeah.
You know, Tony's got the picture of him 5 years after the snap lip on his mantle. There's something there. There is true father figure. And I mean, I was honestly touched at the end of Infinity War when Spider-Man got ripped out of the universe in Tony's arms. I'm like, that is so effective. I was like, wow, impressive. And so the fact that all that leaves because there's a void in the superheroes rather than the void in his life could have been such a great movie. Like, I don't think we have to go to the levels of Logan, you know, in terms of a character study per se. I don't think that's necessarily something we want to do here, or what I can only anticipate is going to happen in Joker, which looks similar in that it's really going to dive deep. I'm okay with it not going that far, but to really never acknowledge that part of this foundation that's been established was a big mistake, and it really bothered me the more I thought about it.
Okay.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, you know, just going back to the trailer, this doesn't really build on what you said, but for those who don't know me, who haven't watched any of our other projects,
Shame.
What?
Shame on all of them.
I know, exactly. I'm an aspiring screenwriter, and so I think about, like, holistically, you know, like, how is the movie presented? Not just on screen, not just what I write, but, you know, what's the marketing going to be like? As someone who is in marketing for my day job. And I had this idea a long time ago, like, you know, because I don't like trailers giving away too much of the movie, I wanted to have trailers just share the overall feeling of the movie. So you wouldn't necessarily see things that happen in the movie, in the trailer. You would just understand, oh, this is the world that's being built, and these are the characters and what they're like. And maybe you'd get a little bit of what happened so that you understand the plot of the movie you're going to go see. So now that I'm seeing that in practice, essentially, with this flick bait, right? I mean, you see him taking on gangsters and he's talking to these cops. I'm going on vacation. It's like none of that happens in the movie. You know, there's another shot of him like going to someone to get his passport. I need a passport. That's not in the movie. I mean, like, I don't know what any of that has to, like, what they were building up to in those scenes.
Right.
But you know, it was just weird. It was just weird to see that in the trailer and then not in the movie. So I don't know if my idea, you know, that I had a long time ago, would actually be satisfying, because I kind of feel kind of cheated, to be honest. You know,
It would be satisfying, and I'm going to take us on another tangent for
okay.
a second.
All right.
But like, I don't think you're a fan of Stranger Things.
I like Stranger Things. I just haven't seen the last 2 seasons. No time.
So you didn't see previews for the season 3.
No.
And I'm not giving anything away, believe me, if you're going to see it still.
I will.
But there's a major set rather, within season 3, which is the mall. And, you know, it's the mall in mid 80s. And for
Love
the
the 80s.
trailers,
I love the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The trailer for for season 3, the trailers rather, were like little clips of shops that are within, or like commercials for shops that are within the mall.
Okay.
So they don't. I mean, only later, that when it gets closer to the actual season premiering.
Yeah.
But like the teasers were true teasers. Like, this is something you're never going to see. You know, a commercial for Scoops Ahoy or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, this is so cool. This is truly like world building, getting me in the mood for the show.
Right.
Appreciation. Like, oh, I recognize that character. Who's that other one there? You know, it's like it's opening avenues, but it's not telling you anything yet.
Right.
And it's so cool. So it can work.
Okay.
Now I need a passport though.
Exactly. So maybe it works when you're already invested in the characters and you kind of generally understand what the struggle is. You know,
You're
you don't.
invested in Spider-Man.
Well,
you could have done it here.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really thought it through, Brian. Anyway,
Brought it up.
I just wanted to say flick bait.
Clickbait.
All right, so let's go back a little bit here. I wish I had more to say about, you know, the father figure and all that. That is that's pretty deep, right? I just that I hadn't had time to think about that. And didn't cross my mind really. I think once we had established that we're not going to see the whole Uncle Ben storyline happen with this character, like, you know, the whole like losing a mentor or, like you said, a father figure. I guess I just wasn't looking for that ever again. It's like, I'll just assume it's there. Anyway, so the first 30 minutes of the movie, I was already disliking the movie, mainly because I felt like, what the hell kind of movie is this? This is a teenage rom-com. And that was my state of mind for the rest of the movie. Like, I was in that mode. I was like, okay, I know what this movie is. It's a rom-com for teens, like a high school rom-com, with Spider-Man as kind of like, you know, just a side thing, just like a comedic convention or device that he has to hide, right? And, you know, one of the things about rom-coms, which I feel is kind of infuriating sometimes, well, most of the time, is that a lot of the conflict is unnecessary. Like it could be avoided if people could just be a little more honest with each other. Like, you could solve so many problems, you know, just like admit that you like this person. Then you don't have to sit there and be jealous when she's talking to this other dude or whatever. Right. And so you get those same tropes here. You know, Peter, he sets up this convoluted thing about, you know, a dual headphone jack so he can watch movies with MJ on the plane ride to Europe. And then that goes awry because, you know, whatever, some silly things happen about perfume allergies on the plane, and he gets mixed up with a different person on the plane. It doesn't matter. The point I'm making is that, we're subjected to all of these non-Spider-Man things for just like 30 minutes of the movie. And, I felt like, going back to what I said about proper amount of screen time and proper amount of focus on elements in the movie so that the audience is in the right state of mind to appreciate certain things, to have a little bit of predictability in the movie. This is where I think the movie starts to fail. So there you go, 30 minutes in. I actually kind of timed it. It's less than 30 minutes, but it made me stop and check my watch. Like, man, we're going a long time here without anything that is like superhero related.
No, it was all set up and joke and set up and joke and set up and joke. And that whole situation with the, with the airplane and the dual headphones and all that, it was like watching Three's Company. I mean,
Exactly.
Oh, you sit here and you sit in this seat and you sit in this seat. Now you have to hear about my wife who didn't. I mean, this whole thing, I could care less. I'm like, can we get to the plot?
Yeah.
At some point,
cleaning
could
the
we have just
bathroom.
couldn't we have just started in Europe? If you want to go to Europe for whatever reason,
Bingo. Totally.
Jesus,
Yeah.
the whole thing.
That's what
What are
I'm
we
saying.
doing?
That's what I'm saying.
There was something in the beginning which really threw me as well.
Okay.
Because it became a major point later, and I felt like there was no explanation of what's happening here.
Brad?
Not even Brad. Brad's
Oh.
another issue, but this is a bigger issue, which is
Okay.
the Spidey sense, the Peter Tingle.
Mm.
That is renamed. It's funny. That's funny, Renee.
I know.
I don't know if you knew that, but that's funny, especially when they say it over and over.
I mean, do people even like get the reference, double entendre of Peter? I think people like contextually made that connection. Like, oh, it must be something embarrassing. What would be embarrassing? Oh, it's got to be about his genitalia.
Yeah,
But I don't think people today, especially like the younger audiences,
that's true.
like understand that, Peter has more of a direct reference to a penis. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think they were just looking at it as something that was silly. Oh, that's funny or that's embarrassing to say Peter Tingle because it sounds, feminine or whatever. I don't know. The
Okay.
whole thing was nonsense. Regardless of any of that, though,
Yeah.
May throws a banana at him and he gets hit.
Yeah.
That is setting up that he's having a problem with his Spidey sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, correct. And I found that strange because I didn't think it was something you had to work on. It is your superpower, right?
It is. It is
and
what it
it's
is.
it was already shown off in Civil War because there's this classic shot. He's in the terminal, and then it zooms up on his face, and his eyes get wide, just like in the comics.
Right.
And then behind him, a car is being thrown at him, right?
Right.
And he's able to dodge it because of the spider sense, right? And it's like the whole banana thing. It's like, well, let's just forget that happened.
Yeah.
For some reason, he just doesn't have it working. So
doesn't
yeah, I
have
felt like it was a silly convenience for them to, that they needed a big oh wow moment, like he's found his inner strength, right? For the big finale.
Exactly. And so
Very forced.
the idea there that the idea would go along with that more emotional look at what's going on. I don't mind having comedic elements to help break a drama. I think that actually is the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Rather than just make this comedy with some action. This is an action comedy. But if we were going back to my idea of, this is Brian's rewrite, but if it was going to be more about the loss of a father figure, maybe he has lost some part of his mojo to an emotional block or something.
Yeah.
And when he comes to terms with that, only then is he able to release and have that true cathartic moment at the end when he needs it. You know what I mean? And here
That's
it's
awesome.
just like, yeah, I think it really would have played well too. Like
Yeah.
people would care.
Right.
Versus he's dodging a bunch of drones, throughout the whole movie, and he never gets. He gets hit, but he misses more than he gets hit. That's
Yeah.
spider sense.
Right. Totally.
'Cause to me, it wasn't even clear that he had really lost it. Like, would you really need to avoid a banana? Is that a threat? So is that a viable test of if your spider sense even works? So who cares?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So anyway, it was a mess, man. It was a mess because they had to get more jokes in.
Yeah.
You know.
Precisely. It almost felt like it was that banana scene was written after the rest of the movie. Like they got to the end and it's like, oh, he's going to rely on his spider sense. But how do we show that he's got to work up to that? A banana in the beginning. His aunt will throw a banana at him for some reason.
I love it. Do it.
Exactly.
Write it up.
No
Write
one's
the
going to
scene.
question this.
No one
But, you
questions
know,
anything we do.
I know. Exactly. We're the MCU. You have to watch it. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it and going back to flick bait, right? Like it could easily have been, you know, here's Spider-Man. He's cleaning up the city, his neighborhood, whatever you want to say, and maybe, you know, a mobster, like he sees something that makes him think of Tony, whatever it is, and you know, one of these bad guys is able to get a shot off on him, and he gets hit, right, as the cops come in to actually maybe save him.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when Peter decides, oh man, you know, I need to, like, it may be everywhere in the city. Like he's always being reminded of Tony Stark. Right. It's like, I gotta get out of the city. I gotta take a break. And then that's when he goes to Europe. And maybe part of the comedy, if we have to have comedy, is that he can't escape his duties as a superhero because you got this Mysterio thing happening there.
Right.
You know,
right.
So he's like almost like a reluctant superhero in Europe.
I think
And then play down the high school romance.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder, again, I mentioned earlier the Marvel machine and maybe just too many voices. I wonder if they just didn't really define their audience right. Like, to me, I felt like this was a movie that was aimed at preteens versus a movie that is of all ages, of people who are fans of this type of thing.
Right.
And mostly adults who love Spider-Man because we're reliving our youth or we're living through there anyway. And, you know,
Right.
regardless of our age, we always feel like, you know, we can always re-experience that. And I feel like they took out any thoughts of sophistication because they wanted to water it down so much and make it so like saccharine sweet for those preteens that they would just, you know, just like ingest it as quickly as possible. They missed the mark. That's what it felt like to me. I felt like this isn't even a movie for me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said in my written review, actually.
I should probably read that.
No, it's fine. This is great. I'm glad you didn't. I thought you would actually castigate me a little bit for writing that review.
Well, one thing is, if I'm going to talk about something or see a movie or something, I never read any reviews.
Okay,
so I'm
good.
going to read reviews after we're talking here.
No, it's great, and I'm glad we're like simpatico on a lot of these issues. But yeah, I said the same thing. I felt like it was a young adult movie.
Okay. Right.
And you know, the comedy was aimed at a younger audience rather than an audience of all ages. Yeah, I don't know what else to say there. Oh man, I had a. Oh, okay. So one of the other issues I had, just to kind of switch gears here, is, I think the MCU has made a mistake in making Tony, and I think you kind of touched on this, but specifically making Tony too powerful as an inventor. It just feels like, you know, anything you want, we have it. We have that technology, right? Yeah. So, you know, if we need these convenient glasses that can control this sophisticated defense platform orbiting the Earth, Tony has made that. And it's got this, you know, complex AI. Yet, you know, he's so intelligent to make these devices, but there are no safeguards on it. Like, you make it for a particular person, but if that person just feels like, oh, I'm going to give this to someone else, then that person now controls this thing that can destroy the world.
Right.
You know, it's like it's thin, right? It's like a plot that's made for people who won't question it. Yeah. Yeah, and I also didn't understand. Like, I didn't think Tony. I really felt like this movie was forcing us to believe that Tony picked Spider-Man to be his successor somehow. And I didn't understand that. It didn't make sense to me because Peter Parker is not an inventor. At least it doesn't. I know he makes his own little web things, like the know,
Right.
the solution for the webbing. But you know, that's not at the same level of being an inventor in my mind. And I would have thought that, you know, Tony Stark had this relationship with this kid in Iron Man 3,
Yeah.
who it seemed to me that Tony saw that kid as kind of like a, you know, either like a very young version of himself or like the son he never had or whatever, because he gave him all this stuff at the end of the movie, if I recall correctly. He was even there at the funeral, right? Like I didn't even know who the hell that kid was in
one
the
did.
funeral scene in Endgame.
We all
Right?
had to look it up online.
Yeah, I had to look it up too. It's like, okay, that's who that is. All right. And so it's like, okay, obviously that kid had a big effect on Tony, and it seemed like this kid was like cut from the same cloth. Why wouldn't he be the next Tony Stark?
Right.
Instead, this teenage kid who doesn't even want to be Spider-Man, it seems, who's got, you know, teenage things to focus on rather than saving the world or whatever, who's going to give up this thing that Tony gave him. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't believe this.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're right. Not only that, but like you mentioned about the safeguards, even the first use of that
That's what I'm saying.
was
Do
just
do
like,
do 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 do. You almost killed your classmate.
this is so silly.
Yeah.
This is so silly. Like, this is not a movie for me.
Right.
I just wanted to wait until we got something cooler or better. Or I'm like,
Yeah.
what am I watching here?
Oh,
I'm
they're
watching-
mountain goats. Everyone look. Whoa, mountain goats.
It's insane, right?
Mm-hmm.
Insane. That is like, that either had to be writing by committee or Band-Aids or I don't know what. I really
Yeah.
don't know what, but
Right.
I couldn't agree more about that whole idea. I like the name. I thought that was cute. That was the only thing I thought was interesting about it. Edith.
What name? Oh,
Edith.
Edith?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was cute. I laughed. I giggled.
Fine. Fine. Yeah.
That's about the only thing I liked about the whole idea. And the reason I had a problem, another reason I had a problem with that kind of leads me to one of my major problems with the film. What was the film about? Because it seems to me like the film was about this guy who's playing a character named Mysterio, wants to get this tech.
Yeah.
And he wants to get this tech for a reason. And I don't know what the reason was.
Right.
I don't know what he was trying to do.
Correct.
So I had a problem with this on so many levels. First off, he starts the movie with we're in Mexico. He's obviously got a lot of the tech already. He's got drones that are doing lots of nice damage,
Right.
so he can make his little play.
Yeah.
You only see that for a second. Then we get the water elemental, and there's a whole lot of damage being done there by apparently drones that he has control over.
Yeah.
But he needs more drones, I guess. I didn't really understand what the whole point of getting control of Edith was at all.
Correct. Right. Yeah.
I mean, to this day, I'm like, I have not figured out what the purpose was. Because it seems like he already had everything he needed, and if not, they're the smartest people, and they can always make more drones. It's just copy and paste. So if they can do everything, what is the point of this movie? Okay, so there's that problem with him. And then there was the whole like underlying piece, which is what I wanted to care about. You know, like, okay, why Mysterio? What is Mysterio all about? I can't remember his name. I'm sorry.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
No, but I don't remember his name, his character name in the
Quentin Beck.
Quentin Beck. What was Beck's impetus? Like, what was driving him? He had a
Right.
former boss named Tony Stark. Fine. He felt that Tony was unfit to wield the tech that he developed. He named his tech Barf.
Yeah.
Like right there, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm supposed to be a 13-year-old because that's a funny joke.
Right.
I got
exactly.
it now. But he feels that technology is going to change the world. That's what he says. And I'm thinking, well, how could it really change the world? This is something you're going to project. That's all it does, is it projects
Right.
a very sophisticated hologram.
Right.
Unbelievably sophisticated hologram.
Right.
That everyone
Exactly.
can see from every angle, and it's
Yeah.
perfect. Fine. I guess I have to buy that.
Buy it.
But why? What's it going to do? Okay, we don't know. We don't understand how it's actually going to affect the world. We don't know what his intention was, and how Tony was misusing it.
Yeah.
We know Tony was using it for personal therapy, but we don't know how it was supposed to be used because we don't ever get that information.
Right.
So I don't understand what's driving this guy. So he's like, I'll show them. I'll use this illusion tech to weaponize drones because the smartest guy in the room should be heard.
Yeah.
Okay. Tony was obviously brilliant. He's the only one who invented time travel, right? So he's not like an idiot. Okay.
Yeah.
He did a
Yeah.
lot of the work himself. There could be lots of smart people, and people tend to listen to smart people. So if he's going to be someone who is listened to now, and he's going to be the greatest hero on earth, quote unquote, then everyone will listen. I don't know what he has to say.
Right.
So when I say I don't understand the plot of this movie, that's what I mean. I don't understand what the goal was. I don't understand what he has in the middle that he didn't have in the beginning, except for quantity. I don't understand why he was doing anything. So I don't get the reason for Mysterio other than, hey, this will be a cool thing for Peter to fight. And so we can have a nice reveal after the first credits.
Right. No, I'm with you.
I mean, unless I missed something, I'm stymied by this.
No, I'm the same way. I did settle on him just needing some kind of conflict as well. But yeah, they could have, and this goes back to what I said earlier about spending enough time with certain plots. When Mysterio reveals his true intentions, it's done very quickly, right? Like, it's done through this 2-minute toast. And it's the kind of toast that you would never give, right? It's like all this exposition. Right?
I'm giving a toast now.
Exactly. So that the audience understands what the real what's really going on here in 2 minutes, because we don't have enough time to really show this. But they could have done something that made him more sympathetic, and then we would understand okay, yeah, I can see how Tony Stark humiliated him. Or whatever, right? And then make us make us lose that sympathy by seeing that this guy is a little off. Like he is too driven to the point where he's willing to hurt people to achieve his goal. And then obviously you got to show the goal and even make the goal something humanitarian, right? But make us, the audience, decide that the cost of the goal is too much to pay.
And you just described Thanos.
That's what I mean.
And why he was so effective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally agree.
So, it just wasn't there. It just wasn't in the movie.
We made a movie. It doesn't necessarily have a plot, but it's got lots of action. And you'll be so distracted by all the things that are moving.
Wait till you get to these set pieces. They look so good. Now let's kind of write a movie around it.
But that piece, the illusion was pretty phenomenal to watch.
Right.
Completely makes no sense how it could be done. But again, this is the world when everything can be done. So
right, exactly.
At that point, what are you really living in? What are you really protecting? If anything can be done at any time, then you get rid of all stakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like there was no danger in this movie at all. Even when the unlike the stakes of Endgame, like when the 5 people were being trapped in the in that exhibit, Happy and all the kids. Every opportunity they had was to make another joke about it. Really, I mean, it was just joke after joke, to the point that I never felt like they were in any danger, and so I didn't care that they were being trapped, because it was just like, well, let's see how he saves them, rather than taking that as an opportunity to dig into how each character would behave in that situation truly, and make me care about all of them. Maybe Happy shows that he has a second set of feelings, or a second level to him. I mean, the closest we get is on the plane, where he kind of talks about his relationship with Tony, but even then it's just a filter of Tony. It's never really about Happy. If he's going to be in this movie so much, he's in there quite a bit. I mean, give me something to hold on to. Give me a morsel. Let the guy break down or something. It's okay. It's okay to have a little bit of tragedy in a fun movie.
Well, I mean, as you just said, they could have used these moments to be a catalyst for relationships or to get another level of characters. So, for instance, Ned and his girlfriend,
Yeah.
maybe they didn't have to be boyfriend and girlfriend immediately after leaving the plane. I mean, that was inconsequential, except as maybe a like low tier comedic punchline, but there was no setup. So you just had this something that you recognized as a punchline to a joke that was never said. Right? It was like, okay, they're boyfriend girlfriend now. Anyway, instead of doing that, maybe Ned liked the girl, and he gets injured or something.
Yeah.
Defending her, right? And so that you develop some some feelings there.
Right.
The point I'm making is that, like you said, instead they just had these jokes. You have Happy throwing a shield, and it just lands on the ground. Oh, how does Captain America do that? You know what I mean? It's like, that was unnecessary. You're deflating all the tension. We want to be afraid for you. Don't be looking for the next, wisecrack to say. And that was actually one of my complaints in Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Tony Stark and Rhodey,
Yeah.
right? They're walking around the oil rig or wherever the hell they were at the end. And, they're like cracking jokes, with each other. And I'm like, no one is afraid for their lives right now. How can I be afraid for these characters then? Anyway.
Or at least have Iron Man doing it and Rhodey calling him out. That
Yeah, there you go.
you make the jokes because you can't deal with what's really happening. You need to really focus now, Tony.
Something.
And then he comes back with a joke. That's fine.
Yeah.
Now, or at least we're inhabiting two characters rather than two, writers' characters.
Right. I agree.
So, on the subject of a few of the characters who are just there, Brad.
Okay, thank God. I wanted to talk about this because part of, if you're going to have these various plot lines,
Yeah.
you got to resolve them, right? And if you're going to have the teenage rom-com plot where Brad is the rival vying for the affection of MJ,
Yeah.
you got to wrap that up somehow, right? You got to have resolution to that in a satisfying way that befits the rom-com plot.
Yeah.
That never happens here, right? I don't understand why they set all of that up only to have it be like, isn't it weird that Peter's leaving and I took a picture of him in the bathroom, and that's how it ends with Brad.
Right.
They admonish him for taking pictures of people in the bathroom, and that's it. And it's like, that's not satisfying at all.
Right.
What were you going to say, Brian?
There was a lot of that, by the way. Like
Okay.
there's a whole scene with Peter and MJ, and she's talking about Bo. Bo is my new superpower.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I don't understand any of this, but maybe it's going to come back later and give me something satisfying.
Right.
No, it exists in the little mini scene. and it
30
never
minutes
comes
of
back.
rom-com, bro.
Dude, but a good rom-com will do much better. I
Yeah.
actually like rom-coms.
Exactly.
This is doing a disservice.
Well, that's the thing. He could have said, as he's about to kill or, defeat Mysterio,
Right.
he takes the gun away and he's like, Bo, or whatever, right?
Bo, don't play that. Oh,
Or whatever. The point I'm making is that, it brings back that he's thinking about MJ.
right.
All of that. It wraps it up nicely.
Exactly.
Or
Yeah.
maybe there could have been like earlier conversation between Ned and Peter. Ned saying, Peter, as a superhero, you got to have a catchphrase. Like when you beat up a guy, you got to be able to say something, And then that's what he says here. Like he can't think of anything. It's just like, Bo, right? And it's like, oh, okay. That would be funny because there's a nice setup for it.
Exactly. There are setups and no payoff.
Well, here's the other thing about Peter Parker, at least this particular one. Spider-Man is supposed to be the guy with all these quips, right? That's like part of his weaponry or his attack against the villains. Like he puts them, off their game by insulting them.
Yeah.
And I don't think this Peter Parker does any of that.
Not in this movie.
Did he do it in the first movie? I don't think he did it there either.
Not much there. He does it in Civil War, but even those aren't really enemies. Those are just other heroes. But he's talking to them and getting them off their game. like he's fighting Falcon or whatever, and
But he's saying, isn't he like saying like complimentary things, like "You got a metal arm, cool," you know, like he's not like insulting them,
right?
you know?
Well, that's when he turned 17.
Oh, I see. Great, we're got
I don't know
something to
what
look
to tell
for.
you,
There's some
man.
growth.
Honestly, I was so confused by this movie. Like, there was a part when the Martin Starr character and JB Smoove are like. By the way, I'll come to them in a second. But
Yeah.
the two of them are like, they're leading the group to a museum.
Yeah.
You know, this is like when something's breaking out. You know, I think maybe the water elemental was,
Yeah.
you know, coming to fruition, and they're leading this group. And I'm like, who's this group of tourists that are with? And I'm like, oh, that's the class. That's supposed to be 16-year-olds.
Yes.
So I'm like, this is the world's most diverse 90210 20-something-year-old cast playing teenagers that I've ever seen. This makes no
Yes.
sense to me.
Right.
This makes no sense. I really thought they weren't even part of the group. I thought it was just the two of them at first going, and there just have to be some other people going until I recognized, oh, those are the classmates.
Yeah.
Yes.
Diversity,
Yeah, global. They came from global casting.
basically. Yeah. Yeah. I did notice that as well.
But the Martin Starr and JB Smoove, like, JB Smoove had one note that he kept playing over and over.
Yeah.
You know, or two notes, like, it's not me. That's not my responsibility, and it's witches, right? Which neither were funny, neither
Right.
were necessary.
He's a small bladder.
Oh, okay.
That's the other thing.
That's forgettable.
Yeah.
So, and Martin Starr's character, you know, realistically, if I was to write this movie, you have to have a chaperone, but that's just the adult over there. What do
Right.
I care about? Why do I have to look at this guy, and why does he matter?
Yeah.
I actually like him as an actor. So it was unfortunate that these two guys were in here doing whatever they're doing. You know, I felt like they could have definitely just been cutting room victims, you know, and I would have been a lot happier, but I don't know what they were doing in this movie.
Right. Well, I mean, I think this goes back to what you said earlier about, you know, make everybody funny,
Yeah.
which was unnecessary. Like, these guys did not have to be funny at all.
No.
I didn't want to know anything about them. I didn't think they needed two of them.
No.
It would have been funnier if it was just Martin Starr and he's having trouble wrangling everybody, maybe even playing on the whole, where the hell is Peter again? Right? Like, he's the one who's noticing that Peter's always gone. Where that, you know?
Taking pictures of people.
I don't know where that would go yet, but I just feel like, what'd you say?
Taking pictures of people in the bathroom. Just give them all of Brad's. Or
Well,
what is
yeah,
it?
yeah, exactly.
Hitting on MJ. Wait a second.
Hey, you know, even that would work. You know, the whole, like, my wife left me in the 5 years that I was gone,
Right.
right? Like, you know, yeah, you could have condensed a lot of comedic beats into this guy,
Yeah, or just left them out altogether.
or left him
Would
out.
have been
Yeah,
smarter.
totally.
So let's see. Couple things I wanted to bring up as well. When Quentin whatever Mysterio
Beck.
invites Peter Parker to the bar, I was like completely in discomfort, because here's a guy who's so worried about being outed as Peter Parker. He's sitting there in his night monkey suit, right? With his his mask is off,
Right.
next to Mysterio, who's completely in the suit,
Yeah.
and they're there amidst a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
I did not understand what was happening in that entire scene, and I'm like, am I watching an illusion? Is this whole thing illusion? Like, is Peter an illusion?
Yeah.
And this is something that's going to be revealed? Only to find out what actually happens makes, well, I guess even less sense, but it made no sense to me at all, like why he would be in this situation, like as if there are no phones with cameras in Prague. You know what I mean? Like this.
Yeah.
This characterization it put me off, and it took me there are a lot of things, but this one took me completely out of the movie. And I was like looking around, what's happening right now? What is happening?
Yeah.
Is no one else having a problem with what's happening in this movie? So yeah, I had a major problem with that whole scene. I mean, not just how it ended, but how it was set up.
Sure. No, I didn't even consider that. For some reason, I just assumed, oh, this must be like a safe place. Like everyone is just cool at this bar.
They're all
You know?
ex-heroes
Exactly.
with their masks
Exactly.
on. Even if he said, I have a safe, I think he even said I have a safe place.
Okay,
But-
I don't know.
Saying that, I think he said something like that, but saying
Okay.
that and seeing all these people,
Right.
what does it mean? You have to check your phone, and all these people are blind. But it's a good thing that the illusion has lemonade for me to drink.
Yeah,
Yeah, this was really bad. This is bad.
that's a very good point. That just like flew over my head. All right.
All right. I don't really have much to say about Sam Jackson and Kobe Smulders other than they were there.
Well, yeah, they were there, but once again, going back to the Transformers comparison, one thing that really put me off watching the first one and also the second one were the parents characters.
Yeah.
And the comedy there, obviously they were there for comedic relief, but it was just corny, just bad, corny comedy.
Yeah.
And, in the first Transformers, the Transformers were like moving around the house, but the parents don't see them,
Right.
It's like, oh, my fountain is broken. Oh, was there an earthquake or whatever? And I'm like, this is moronic,
Right.
right? And I just felt like, similar here. This is the comedy. I'm so lost in thinking about Transformers. I can't even remember what part of this movie I wanted to compare to it. Like, what the
Sam
hell were we
Jackson.
just talking about?
Sam Jackson and
Yes, thank you very much, Sam Jackson. So, I felt like the Sam Jackson aspect, it was like all the comedy related to him was at the level of that Transformers comedy. Did you just ghost Sam Jackson or Nick Fury?
Same thing.
Don't ghost him. Don't ghost me or whatever. Like, oh, he'll reach out to me. What? I'm like, this is not funny.
Right.
What is this? I don't know, man. It almost felt like it was comedy that maybe another culture would appreciate, like the Japanese or something. And I not that I know anything about what the Japanese find funny, but what I mean is, like, it wasn't made for Americans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it was like meant for someone who maybe doesn't understand what is happening on screen, but they understand, oh, it's funny. He's upset or whatever. Right? So
Yeah.
maybe for young children or for a foreign culture, but it just didn't speak to me.
Right. And then to use the reveal of them being squirrels later was extreme to me. It was just unsatisfying.
So I was so put off by this movie, I didn't even stay to the end. I didn't stay for the post credits thing. So,
Okay. Wow.
Kat, I did read a little bit about Skrulls. So tell me about Skrulls.
So you didn't see either one of the
I did see the mid credit one.
more important one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the last credit sequence, or the last post credit sequence is basically the two Sam Jackson and Hill driving in a car, and she shakes off her whatever her Hill and becomes a squirrel, and he becomes, what's his name, Ben Mendelsohn.
Okay.
Again, from
Yeah.
Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And they're basically putting a call in to Sam Jackson. And so they call Sam Jackson, and he's somewhere. We don't know where he is, but he's on some ship. Well, initially, he looks like he's, at a beach, which for some reason was another joke that they were
Okay.
putting on. But
All right.
it's revealed that he's actually on a ship, some mega ship, that they're building something, and he has left this scroll in, basically back on Earth to represent him
Yeah.
for some reason. We don't know
Yeah.
why,
All right.
but I mean, I get that. I get that they're just trying to tease something. I'm okay with that. But the idea behind it is like, well, this is the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. Why not just have a lieutenant in charge? I think everyone would respect that, the chain of command.
Yeah.
But this just seemed like this is funnier because this is someone
Right.
He's a Skrull, and we're gonna entrust them with basically everything, since S.H.I.E.L.D. is the protector of the world. So to me, first off, it did not dismiss any of the weird behavior that I saw with the two of them, and they were kind of one note.
Yeah.
And secondly, I thought it was a mistake because I would have rather seen the personalities of Sam Jackson come out and Kobe Smulders come out a little bit more. Smulders, whatever her name is.
Yeah.
And here they're just like they're playing caricatures of themselves. So it was like deeply unsatisfying on both levels for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was not pleased. If it was just her and some guy, you know, or like she was in charge and calling into Sam Jackson and he's away. I don't know how you could have played it to try and make the setup for Phase 5, but what they did I think was a mistake. I didn't care, and I didn't care about Sam Jackson or Kobe Smulders in the movie at all. And
They
I
were
felt
unnecessary, to be honest.
Yeah, they were unnecessary. I think they were just there because we need some more names. You know?
More tie-in.
Yeah, I mean, my son was asking me, well, where's Hawkeye? Where's God, however many other ones there are. New Captain America, Winter Soldier. Where are all these other ones that are not available?
Yeah.
Oh, looks like no Avengers are coming, so we're safe to create this illusion. I mean, the whole thing was just ridiculous.
Simplistic, bro. Simplistic.
So ridiculous.
Just go with it.
God, man. Speaking of the illusions, could Mysterio actually fly?
I wanted to ask that as well. So,
You.
no, that's the thing, because it shows him flying to talk to Peter Parker.
Yes.
When Peter Parker's feeling down, Mysterio comes up. You got sarcasm in this world, right?
Right.
And he sits next to him, right? And I'm just thinking, is that an illusion? Is there a drone sitting next to Peter Parker right now?
I don't know. But
And
if so, I guess that's good. His Spidey sense wasn't working.
Yeah. So, I wrestle with that because it's like, there are things I'll believe, and this one is like, it's starting to strain my willing suspension here.
Yes.
But then also, he's shooting his webs at the fire elemental in the first 45 minutes of the movie.
Right.
And his webs, his web shots, whatever they're called, like they melt, like they catch on fire, right?
Yes.
Like he's shooting them and they start burning back towards him. And I'm like, can the drones do that? At no point do we ever see them use fire.
They can do anything.
They can do anything.
Anything. So why not have them do everything?
That's what I mean. I don't know, but at least show us that. If they're going to make them do everything, like at least show us everything that they can do so that we understand the rules.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, I guess my final comment would be about that the mid-roll.
All right.
I was in a theater in which when what's his name?
J. Jonah Jameson.
When J. Jonah Jameson, but I don't remember the actual actor right now.
Oh, right. I can't remember either.
All right. Well, when he comes on screen, there was an audible like that, and I was there too because I'm like, he was a good J. Jonah Jameson back in the Raimi films, and I was like, that's so cool to bring him back. So I thought that was a fun reveal.
But they've made him a different kind of J. Jonah Jameson. They made him an Alex Jones.
Yeah, he's like InfoWars guy now.
Yeah, he's InfoWars. From his demeanor, from the setup, the presentation, being at a desk and all that. Yeah, it's totally an InfoWars reference.
It's totally InfoWars. It means we're going to lose all of the rich interaction between him and Peter Parker if he's going to go work with him.
Dude, is Peter Parker going to work for the Daily Bugle.net or whatever?
I don't think so anymore because
because he knows he's Peter Parker. Quoting, that's right.
Give me those pictures of Spider-Man. I'm right here, man. So I'm like, okay. So on one hand, I was like, all right, I guess they're going in a different direction. But on the other hand, I liked that he was outed because I think it, the first time that happened with Tony Stark kind of outing himself. Yeah. I was like, this is not something I expected. And I thought it was interesting that it was done that way. And and then you realize how many characters are truly masked at all. People know the identities of most of them. Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting element to introduce. I thought that was more interesting than the movie. That reveal.
Okay. Well, I mentioned this in my review as well that, one of the things that holds Peter Parker back and is like a major plot point for the movie is that he's trying to live a normal life and he can't let people know that he's Spider-Man or Spider-Man is him.
Except at the bar.
Except at the bar. Whatever, Brian. Whatever. So, they introduce this Dimitri guy, and he's driving a bus, and they're going to go to Germany now, and all this other stuff, right? And I'm like, all of this is unnecessary. Like, I don't understand why this is like it is, because everyone knows who all of the other Avengers are. They seem to be living fine lives. Like, there's no problem that people know you have superpowers.
Yeah.
Just reveal yourself. I'm a superhero. Okay, fine. You still got to go to school. I mean, how is your life going to change for the worse?
You know what? On a related note, I think about it. One of the other things that really bothered me is if we're going to live in a world where he is hiding his identity, then that is a really cool thing to reveal to someone. Like, that is a meaningful thing to reveal. Yeah. And the way it was handled with MJ, I thought was so dumb and so bad. It didn't land at all. And I was really disappointed when it happened. I'm like, it seemed like another missed opportunity in the film. Like, this could have been something meaningful. It could have been something, that he's going to use this. Maybe this is way later after they've developed a real rapport or something. I don't know, which didn't really exist. Yeah. I guess it makes sense within the boundaries that this movie set up, where nothing really makes sense. But it's just unfortunate that they didn't use that to better effect, because it was just kind of, oh, you're right, I am Spider-Man. Now I gotta go.
We gotta go do something. What? I was just kidding. I didn't really know. It's funny. Do.
I was only 67%.
Exactly.
Sure. Okay. Well, 67% of me didn't like this movie. Flick it.
Flick it hard. Flick it in the air.
Renee, I don't think I have anything else to say about Spider-Man Far From Home. Do you?
No. I mean, look. I feel like I'm being a little, maybe overly critical. Like, it is, I think at the end of the day, just a fun popcorn movie. Like, okay, fine. A lot of things could have been handled better, and maybe they don't, they make sense, but only like a razor thin level of sense. Yeah. Okay. Like, don't question it too much. Don't look at it too hard. It might break. Yeah. Right. Just go with it. And I think if you just do that, it's fine. It's fine. You know what I mean? It's fine. Yeah.
I mean, when I came out of Ragnarok, I was like, this was a fun, silly movie. Yeah. With no real consequences, but I really just enjoyed it. This was a popcorn fun film for me. Yeah. And I know other people, including you, I think had a lower analysis of the movie or
too funny.
Enjoyment.
Too funny.
But this one I left and I was just like, oh, I didn't enjoy that.
Okay.
So I don't feel like at least me, I don't feel like I'm being too harsh. I think that this was sloppy and they phoned it in, and I'm a little unhappy with, the people who create the MCU that they let this one out like this, because it could have been so good. It could have been really cool. So it's a missed opportunity for me.
Well, yeah, maybe I'm being swayed too much by the big action set pieces. Yeah. And I don't want to deprive anyone of at least experiencing those, because I think they were really good. And I think they, especially the first encounter where we get to see Mysterio's power, his true power. Yeah. I think that is one of the best action set pieces that I've seen in the MCU.
Hats off to the VFX. I mean, they were,
because it's very clever.
Very clever. And actually, the scene where when we saw the water elemental and he was kind of circling around, he's like, good job, keep it up, like that. It sounded kind of hollow. And I was like, oh, there's a clue in there. Like, that means something. That's interesting to me, because it feels like it's almost felt to me like feels like it's pre-recorded. Right. The way he's saying it. So to get that level of VFX and make it interesting, I mean, you're right, man. The visuals were just super cool in this movie. I have nothing bad to say about those at all. It's
Okay, well, now that you bring this up, Brian,
Yeah.
makes me. I think there might be another hole here. All right, if we don't know that he can fly, let's assume he can't fly
yeah.
without the illusion. Okay. Oh well. Okay. Okay. So the illusion is all pre-scripted. It seemed. Right? That was what the whole, there's a sequence there where he's directing one of his guys like, oh, we got to turn up the destruction or whatever, right? And it's the same footage. It's not like you can change that on the fly. At least it
Right.
didn't seem that way. So did he know that Peter Parker would be there on the ledge to say, hey, I can help, I'm strong? And then he would then direct Peter Parker to do stuff as an illusion? I don't, did they, is that like an illusion made on the fly?
It's the contingency illusion.
In
What if
case
Peter
someone
Parker
says,
comes
I
in-
can help? You know? In case someone's there, like, okay, project me flying here so I can say, I can speak to this person. I don't know, man. Maybe?
Probably not.
Plot hole?
One
Plot
of many.
hole. Yeah.
One of many.
Okay.
But I will leave it at this. At least we got to see the seamstress, ironing out or
steaming his
steaming the wrinkles
cape. Yeah.
several times.
Yeah. Do you still need the cape? Yes, Janice. I need the cape.
Did you say Janice? See,
Isn't
you
that her name,
remembered.
Janice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's what your takeaway is from this.
Yeah, I
There's
know
a
their
funny scene
names.
there. All right, man. Well,
That's it. Okay. Well, I think
That's
we have
worth that,
fully.
buddy.
What's that?
I think we worked this one to death.
Yeah, this has been flicked far away from us. All right.
Do we have a symbol for flick or motion for flick? I don't even know what that means. Exactly. Fuck this movie.
Yeah. Two flicks away.
I actually have a mom, but that doesn't make me a mother flicker.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was rough, bro. That was rough. That is not going to be part of the brand.
Oh yeah, I gotta leave that out.
Yeah. This
All of a sudden, there's a cut. What?
exactly. Just faded out for some reason. That's weird. All right. If you enjoyed what we're doing, please make sure to subscribe and let people know where you saw us, and get your friends to subscribe as well. Awesome. That was a rousing plug.
We'll see you next time.
Yes, hopefully.
Brian. Gonna hee-haw over here.
I think you should do that when we do the real
Brian.
thing. I love it. All right, are you ready for this?
I'll just what's that called? A bray, right? A horse like brays.
Oh, yeah.
Brian.
Is that what a horse sounds like?
Yeah, kind of to me.
Okay. I think a horse neighs.
But isn't that more of a sound?
I thought, well, maybe. I don't know. I thought a horse I thought that was more of the
Can you
neigh.
get your horse vernacular down, please, before
I don't know, man.
Come on, man.
I don't know what to tell you. Never had to research horses to that degree before.
Well, no, you should.
Hello. What am I saying? What are we doing?
Are we recording? I don't know. Are we recording? Are we
We're
starting?
recording now, Brian.
All right, great.
Actually, we've been recording for a little bit here. So I got all of that weird staring off into space. It's going to be the end of this episode. And braying and neighing, horse sound effects, horse foley.